right, welcome into episode 26 of Rhymer on the Road, Ann and Scott, and so thankful that you're here and continue to follow along with us as we give you an update on Twin Falls, Idaho here in episode 26. And I want to share all of that with you. But before we do all that, just like we do in every single episode, we want your feedback on what to do in our next stop. And where's that going to be?
We are heading to North Cascades National Park.
We are going
in Washington State.
In Washington State. Mm-hmm. We are now going to be in the Pacific time code. We are getting about as far away from South Carolina as we'll be on this trip. Kind of a wilderness area. Yeah. So, if you've got feedback on that, you can do it a bunch of different ways. You can go to YouTube, just while you're watching this now, and put it in the comments. You can also go to Instagram, right?
RhymerOnTheRoad on Instagram.
Yep, and you do a great job of kind of updating us in a little bit more real time than sometimes the YouTube videos are.
Right.
Yeah, and so check those out and some photos and give us feedback. And you can do it in any of those ways. We'll be happy to have it. We're excited to show you episode 26 from Twin Falls, Idaho. Roll the tape. Okay, well, I think one of the great things about Twin Falls, Idaho, if you're not staying here for a long time, if you're just coming and maybe staying one night or two nights en route to somewhere else, there's a lot of things that you can do right there within 10, 15 minutes of the city proper. And that's where our campground was, right in the city. And I think all of it starts at the visitor center, just like every town. But this visitor center is uniquely placed because it's right at the Perrine Bridge, and it's got the huge gorge leading down to the Snake River, which is kind of like a mini Grand Canyon. It's just huge, and it kind of took us aback a little bit when we first got there, how deep it was. And so there's great views here from just the visitor center parking lot up both sides of the canyon. There's actually also a walking trail that kind of goes along the rim. We didn't do that just from a time perspective. We did maybe a little bit of it, but we didn't really do the whole thing. But it's paved for most of it, so you could bike it if you want or take your dog. Just again, great views of the canyon and the Snake River. We did drive down into the canyon, into the Centennial Waterfront Park. I think it was actually closed, the actual park was, but we were able to get down there, had to kind of turn around at the golf course, but we're able to get some views up into the canyon and of the bridge. But also there's a couple waterfalls down in there that we got some good footage of and we're able to watch as well. So I definitely think that's worth the very short drive down into the canyon. Quirky thing that you could do, and it's kind of on the way to some of the other things that we did, was the Evel Knievel jump site, where back in the 70s Evel Knievel got this rocket and he was going to fire himself across the Snake River. It didn't work, but he parachuted him. He didn't make it all the way, but he parachuted himself to safety. But the ramp is still there. And again, you can walk up to the ramp, see where it is, and then look over the Snake River and the huge gorge there too. So again, not a destination. I wouldn't plan your whole trip around that, but it's easy to get to because it's on the way to Shoshone Falls, which is kind of one of the signatures, I think, of the Twin Falls area. One of the unique things about Shoshone Falls, which is kind of their signature of this area, is that it's actually vertically higher than the Niagara Falls vertical drop of the water. Now, a couple of things about that. First of all, Niagara Falls is a pretty steady flow. I'm sure it ebbs and flows a little bit, but for the most part, until it freezes, Niagara Falls is going to be consistent. Shoshone Falls is not so. It's much more aggressive and has a lot more waterfall in the spring and early summer when the snow melt's coming down. It was just kind of peeling over top of the falls. It wasn't a dramatic waterfall the time that we went, but you can see pictures of it, and we saw pictures of it where it's pretty majestic when it's actually at a heavy flow. And I will say, to their credit, I think it was $5 maybe to get into the state. It's like a little state park, or anyway, there was some fee to get into it, but they had a sign before you paid your money, and they let you know how aggressive the falls were, and it said falls are at a low today or in this area, so we knew it wasn't going to be a huge waterfall to see, but it was still definitely worth doing. Right next to Shoshone Falls is a lake, Dirk's Lake, I think is how it's pronounced. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but again, it's just an easy. None of this was difficult to get to. It's easy to park. Obviously, in the heavier seasons, it may be a little bit more difficult. But again, Ann was able to kind of walk up there and get some great photos of the lake. And of course, when you're in Twin Falls, Idaho, you expect to see some Twin Falls, and that's also very close to the city. A little bit further away than Shoshone Falls, but easy to get to. And actually, I thought the Twin Falls were more interesting to see with the low water flow. So both of those falls were pretty cool to see, and we got some good video and footage of that. But it's, I think, regulated a little bit by the dam there. It's an electricity dam in that area, so I think they kind of funnel that water into a certain area. So the falls there are probably a little bit more consistent than Shoshone Falls, but again, the Twin Falls, all of those things are very easy to get to from the city of Twin Falls.
All right, so we did a day trip to Crater of the Moon National Monument, and it's about an hour and a half from downtown Twin Falls. And although a scenic drive, it was, I mean, you're going through some farmland, cattle land, and then you start to get to mountains. So it's, I mean, it's a pretty drive on some little 2-lane roads. But then all of a sudden, you start to see lava fields. So it's definitely a worthwhile trip to get there, but really unique scenery because it has these former lava flows, and so it's a lot of black, but then also just, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe it. Look at the pictures, the video that we've got up, because it was just a very unique place, and it's always been on our list, but my sister-in-law, Scott's sister, Lacey Rymer, and her family had gone earlier this summer and had said it's definitely a place to go. And I would agree with that.
A couple of pretty easy walks that had, the one I went on, we had to tag team because we had Leo. And so the boardwalk I went on was easy. It had a lot of great information along it, and I think pretty much similar to the one you did, right?
It was, right, yeah. And so there were lots of, it basically has another scenic drive, you know, in a national area. So it's a scenic drive that you could go through, not quite a loop, partly loop, but part in and out as well. And then it had different stop-offs along the way. All of them has short hikes. Now there were some longer hikes there. We didn't do them because we had Leo, but we would do the shorter hikes and the overlooks.
Okay, we're at Craters of the Moon National Monument, and it's during a government shutdown. We are in early October of 2025, and the government's been shut down for about 3 or 4 days. So the visitor center was not open. Okay, not a big deal. But the restrooms weren't either, and that's a bigger deal. So I'm not sure that a government shutdown is worthy of not having the restrooms open. But you know, that's how it goes. But this is a wild place for sure. As you can see behind me and around me. Lots of lava flow. About 2,000 years old right here when the eruption took place. So pretty cool place. Just wish everything was open. Okay, update. Spoke too soon. The restrooms are indeed open on the trailheads. So I take back what I said earlier about the one that was closed. So I was taking back what I said earlier on my walk, that it was ridiculous that they have the bathrooms closed. Government shutdown.
The vault toilets are open.
Okay, so much better. I got to walk up this huge black lava hill. I
decided to let him do that.
Yeah, I don't know how to describe it. It was all up there, much easier coming back down, but it offered views of kind of the whole area of Craters of the Moon, and so it's a good little pop up the hill. Of course, you can stop anytime you got something uphill. You can always stop and get your breath, and I did a couple of times. But it did offer some panoramic views of the entire area, and I definitely recommend that as well. The walk down is a lot easier than the walk up.
And then on the way back, we ended up hitting a scenic drive on the way back. Don't know the name of it. Unfortunately, maybe Scott can find it and put it on the screen. And it was worthwhile. And so it made the drive. So we kind of went out there one way, came back a different way, and sort of knocked off a couple things while we were on our day trip back. I think one of our favorite outings for the trip in this area was kayaking to Blue Heart Springs, which is right off of, I guess, kind of a little cove of the Snake River. So we went to, I think it was Blue Heart Kayaking. It was $20 a person for 2 hours, which is actually one of the cheaper excursions we've done. And you get the kayak, and you actually could have done it cheaper. I think it was $30 an hour for a tandem kayak, but we decided not to do the tandem, so we went with our own individual kayak. Got to kayak down the Snake River to the Blue Heart Springs, and then one of the better things is that we actually passed this, not waterfall, but I guess one of the tributaries coming in, and so it had sort of a little waterfall coming into it, and it was beautiful. The water was crystal clear. You could see, I mean, it's just, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe it. Look at the pictures, it was beautiful.
Blue Springs, which is just around the corner up here. We're going with the Snake River right now. On the way back, we'll be going against her. But this is extremely peaceful and beautiful.
And then we went down to Blue Heart Springs, and there again, you know, gosh, I don't know, 10 feet of water. You could see all the way to the bottom. There were just a couple of other couples there. I can imagine during the high season, this place is swamped. So I think we really lucked out. We had a nice, I think it was their last day that they were open for the season. But the weather was perfect. We weren't getting into the water. You could, some people do go in and go swimming, and I think the water in the spring stays pretty similar all year long. So maybe we could have done it, but it was just beautiful and relaxing, and it wasn't very difficult. Even when we had a kayak back up against the spring, the Snake River, it's not the flow. It's not like you're going through rapids and stuff, so it was very easy to do. And the gentleman who helped us, I think he said the flow of the Snake River actually stays pretty steady through the year. So in the depth of it as well. So it doesn't fluctuate much. So well worth it if you were in that area. It was maybe a 45-minute drive out to it. You got to do it if you're in the area.
Yeah, this was the biggest surprise to me. I had it on my list because I'd seen the pictures of it, but I was like, well, kayaking, it's October, I don't know if that's going to work out for us. We had a couple of weather days in the area, so it was going to be the nicest and the warmest on this one particular day, which, as you mentioned, happened to be the last day that this kayaking place was open.
So we lucked out.
But it was a true highlight of not only this area, but one of the highlights of the trip. I think
so far. It was one of my favorite excursions that we've done so far. And it's one that I had actually found watching TikToks. Just kind of searching for different areas, and this came up, and it was just it was spot on. So if you're there, you can get out there and do it.
Another great excursion from the Twin Falls area, about 30 minutes or so maybe from Twin Falls, maybe just a little bit further, is simply titled Balanced Rock. And it's kind of a unique drive because when you're driving there, you get no perspective that you're going to run into something like this. In fact, we were like a mile away from it on the GPS or on our Waze, and we're like, I don't know how there's going to be any mountainous kind of stuff there.
Because we were just in the middle of farmland.
Yeah,
it was just
flat.
farm after farm after farm.
But then all of a sudden we turn the corner and it's like, voila, and it's just this formation that was created, I presume, by the Snake River as it made its way down, or one of the tributaries of the Snake River as it made its way down. But this rock literally sits up upon this a group of rocks, but it is precariously sitting there like it could fall over. And so it's just a quick little hike up to it, great views of the rocks. We actually ran into some people who were from Idaho, and they were kind of asking us what we'd been doing, and they were very curious about our trip, and so we got to talk to them a little bit on the walk up to the top of this little overlook where the Balanced Rock sat. But it's so easy to get to, relatively speaking, from Twin Falls. Definitely worth a trip over there. And it also kind of got us in a direction where we were able to retrace or drive by in some areas and some overlooks where you could retrace the original Oregon Trail as it weaved its way through Idaho, of course, on the way to Oregon. And you could actually see the pathway of it We didn't get close enough to where you could see the actual ruts from the wagons, but there are places where if you seek that out, you can find that. But we were on an overlook and we could see the pathway of the Oregon Trail, and you can definitely tell from the contours of the mountains and the Snake River and the plateaus and all that why they chose that area to go to, because it was relatively flat. So that whole area, the Balanced Rock, and being able to see the Oregon Trail, that's just kind of a pretty cool little excursion from Twin Falls.
Yep. And there were great views of the Snake River kind of through there. We went over it a couple times, and there were a few overlooks that you could take to get to it. It was actually a scenic drive.
Yep.
So if you could probably look up a scenic drive over there near the Balanced Rock, that was worth doing. Had some good.
But the state park that was right off of Interstate 93, and you would never really know it when you're driving down Interstate 93, but if you just take that exit and get off of the state park, you got great views of the Snake River and the gorge and a huge waterfall that goes like right under the interstate that you would just never know. They had a longer road there that went somewhere. We don't know where it was because it was closed, and we don't know why it was closed.
I think it went to more overlooks and stuff, so we weren't able to get. And we actually picked out this state park after we ran into the locals at Balanced Rock.
That's right.
They recommended going there, and so that's why we made sure we stopped there. But yeah, you can only go to the one overlook, and that was the only thing that was open.
Which is a great example of if you get lucky enough to run into people who are from an area, and we've had some of that. We've done a lot of research, but research would have never pulled up this place that we went to, or we'd had to really dig down a rabbit hole, and it was an easy on and off of the road trip to go to, and talking to locals I think is always a great thing to get some insider scoop on what the cool things are to do in the area. All right, there you go, episode 26 of Twin Falls, Idaho. Now, let me begin by asking you a question, because Twin Falls, Idaho is not necessarily what people would think would be a destination vacation area, right? But this area of Idaho sits kind of in the center of a lot of different things. I mean, you can go north, you might be going to Glacier. You may be a little bit west and north, Yellowstone and Tetons. You may be going south into Utah with the Mighty Five. You could even be trying to traverse to get down to Nevada, Las Vegas, Reno, those types of areas.
It kind of traveling around.
That's right.
You could pass through.
It sits in a place where if you're going from point A to point B, you could go in this direction and stop and stay a night or two or three. And so that's my question to you is it worth a couple of extra days to stay and do some of the things that we did?
I think if you have the time, and especially if you're on a longer trip, it's a great stopover. I mean, it really is. And when I mean stopover, I don't just mean one night. I mean, stay for an extra couple nights, slow down a little bit, explore the area. It was really a beautiful area.
Yeah, and I think that was what was kind of surprising to me, is that, we stayed in Twin Falls in the city area, but there's a lot of stuff to do even if you only have the one night.
That's right.
You still could hit
one
some
afternoon.
things.
You could hit some stuff. The stuff that's around Twin Falls. The
that's
falls
right.
that we hit. The Evel Knievel site. A couple of those state parks that are right there.
That's right. Yeah. And if you can throw in an extra day, you could do Craters of the Moon, or you could go out and do the kayaking, which I know you probably would recommend.
Blue Heart Springs. I mean, no, I have to say, I think the national park, or the national monument
of Craters of the Moon.
Craters of the Moon, I thought was definitely worth doing, but you might be able to hit that one a little further, because in fact, when we were traveling from Twin Falls to Glacier, which was that's how we kind of progressed, one of the routes took us right by Crater of the Moon.
That's true.
So we ended up going a different direction, but you could, and it had some RV parking, I think, in the visitor center.
Or if you're not RVing and you're just traveling from one place to another, you can very easily go through Craters of the Moon, getting down to Twin Falls area. You know, I know we really loved the Snake River. I know the kayaking was just awesome. And I mean, that really was
one of our highlights, I think.
But I still think just seeing the Snake River for the first time in that area, the Snake River doesn't create the canyons the whole time.
No, and we did see the Snake River in Grand Tetons.
That's right.
That is the Snake River that goes through there too. But, and obviously it's beautiful there, but this was just different, I think, with the way it has carved it. Like I think you described it, it really is kind of like a little Grand Canyon. Not in the color scheme, definitely more browns, but I was not expecting that.
I think if you're going to see the waterfalls in Twin Falls, whether it's Shoshone Falls or the Twin Falls, obviously spring, early summer is better because you get all the snow melt. And that's a lot out here in the West. We run into that quite a bit. And we're doing the opposite because we're trying to avoid the cold weather. So we're trying to hit these things in the summer or the fall. Yeah. But still, you can imagine what it would be like to visit it. Our campground itself. Now, this was really a city campground. One of the few times we really stayed in the city.
Well, I mean, Twin Falls, yes, a city, but it's not like a Chicago or something like that. I mean, it's a small... And the campground that we stayed in was the Oregon Trail campground in Twin Falls.
But it was a great base to do. The people were very nice.
Very nice. Very nice.
And they had the pumpkins out because it was near Halloween or October.
Yeah.
And so it was very homey in that respect. It was very easy jumping off point to all the things that we did because it was either right near Twin Falls, we could get to that in 5-10 minutes. Or if we were hitting some of the longer excursions, including Craters of the Moon or the kayaking, or when we were leaving to go, it was very easy to get out and get back on the road. So
and we did notice a lot of people coming in for just one-nighters. So, I mean, clearly people are just passing through that area, and it was a good jumping off point.
I would say if you need a place to stay and you're going to any of these other things that we mentioned earlier that are just these magnificent, national parks or things that everybody wants to do, and you've got to go from point A to point B, Twin Falls would be a great place to stay and just add at least one full day there. Even if you stay 2 nights, 1 full day, I think you could do some cool things. But if you could do 2, you could do all the things we just showed you here and still get on your way to the next destination. And I think that's what's cool about this area, because believe me when I say the West is vast.
It is.
And even stopping in Twin Falls we stayed 5 nights, I guess, 4 or 5 nights. Yeah. It's still, to get there and then get to the next place was a long way.
It was a long way. Yeah.
So
we're having like 5.5 hour drives when I think our goal was 3.5 hour drives. So it's just, in the East Coast, we were able to kind of stick with that. Yep. But once you kind of get out west, just to get from point A to point B, like you said, it's just longer. Yep. And I think we've gotten pretty good at our little 2-day, 5.5 hour drives.
Well, we're having to do it whether we enjoy it or actually it's been fine. Yeah. And the views are great. Even when it's in the middle of nowhere, it's still beautiful to see because it's so different from what we're used to in South Carolina. So there you go, episode 26. When we talk to you next, we will have some guests that came to us in Glacier National Park. We also have a couple of big announcements, I guess, family things that have happened. They're good things, but they are things that are going to reroute us a little bit.
Right.
We're going to talk about that also in episode 27. So Rhymer on the Road on Instagram. Thanks for following along on YouTube. Scott and Ann, Rhymer on the Road. Do it today.